And hello, welcome to the Social Justice Forums. I am your host, Daren Jaime. We thank you for joining us. Now, if you're asking the question, what is this show all about? We bring you a forum discussing and providing deeper understandings of the issues and inequities that so many people in so many communities face. Things such as systemic inequalities to our pressing social problems of the day. Our guests provide multiple perspectives and insights, helping us better understand and address these challenges. So, we invite you to stay connected to us. The Social Justice Forum starts now. And welcome back. Seeds of Fortune Incorporated is a not-for-profit platform that's dedicated to empowering members on their journey towards economic security. Now, through strategic programs, scholarships, and financial education, this organization is helping young women of color access competitive opportunities and build essential skills for long-term financial stability. Joining us now is the CEO and founder of Seeds of Fortune, Nitiya Walker. And thank you so much for being with us, Nitiya.
Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you. Listen, obviously, it's an important thing. We talk about financial stability. It really helping people get on the path to stability. There's so many people who wish that they can do it, but they just can't. And people such as yourself and your organization really are helping to give some footing and at the same time give some footing, also helping people to really just get to that next level. So talk to us a little bit about Seeds of Fortune.
Yeah, so Seeds of Fortune is an online and hybrid scholars program that helps to financially empower young women across the globe, starting with their college education and then going on to help them to develop financial literacy skill sets as well as career development skills as well as they go from their high school years to their college years, which we found have been pivotal times in their growth as young women to instill these skill sets that will last a lifetime.
And so as you take this on, talk about how you reach these young ladies and where they come from.
Yeah, so our girls come from New York City, all over the country, and all over the globe. We really work with young women that maybe come from underrepresented backgrounds, who really have a desire to be successful. They identify as women from multi ethnic backgrounds, and then we help to level the playing field here in the backyard of New York City. We recruit from the New York City public school system, as well as other community based organizations, but because they are the next generation, we do reach them online, which has also helped us to expand to other parts of the country, such as Texas, Florida, Georgia, California, and then also across the globe. So we have seed scholars in Ghana and Nigeria, which we're very excited to be supporting their journey through their high school experience to their college experience as young women.
That high school experience is pretty critical, especially making that transition to college. And I know that some of the work that you do is really taking the time and preparing young women for college and getting them ready for that college experience. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I think that's so critical and so much needed.
Definitely. What we found here at Seeds of Fortune is that, college is an intermediate journey to what your career is going to be. So we have kind of flipped it on its backside where we have the girls thinking about their future careers first and then thinking about the college second, right? So, do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a nurse? Do you want to be in entertainment? Do you want to be a pharmacist, right? What colleges and universities across the globe are going to provide you a world class education and pipeline you into a strong career? With colleges in the US costing almost anywhere from $20,000 on the low end to $95,000 a year on the more high end, it's very important for the girls to be thinking of themselves as consumers in the college market and really thinking about what is this return on investment going to provide to us as young women going into these universities, that I'm going to be able to be employed or create my own opportunities coming out of this ecosystem. So in our program, we really train them to change their mindsets around it and really have a financial literacy lens when it comes to the college experience, both domestically and abroad. And from there, tagging along career experiences in their ecosystem to allow them to gain those exploration opportunities to see which careers could be the best fit for them. And then in that, picking right colleges that will be the best fits for them as well.
So, as I think about some of the work that you're doing, as you mentioned, colleges can go anywhere from $20,000 to almost $100,000 a year. I mean, I'm just cringing just saying that number through my head. But the reality is that yes, colleges are now, universities are $100,000 a year. You can walk out of there paying almost a $500,000 by the time you get to graduation. That's crazy. But
Crazy.
also having the partnerships with these colleges and universities also is a difference maker for some of the young people that you're dealing with. And one of those high-priced universities is Yale University. So, can you share a little bit about the work that you're doing with Yale, because you do have a unique partnership with them?
Yes, definitely. So we have our Yale Seeds of Fortune in partnership with Yale Women in Economics. We started that program in 2021, post-pandemic. We really were able to see during the pandemic, it was the first time we were able to go into the households of our students, right? Our students would come to us for after school programming, and then it was kind of reversed. So we were really able to see a lot of their fears, their concerns. A lot of them were care providers to their families while their parents were essential workers. Some of their parents had lost their jobs. And it was a really difficult time for young women in our community. And what we realized is that they didn't really understand the macroeconomic impact that was playing out, that was affecting their community, and then as a result their lives. And we were like, how could we develop the next generation of young women of color who are going to be leaders in the workplace, leaders in the community, if they don't understand how the economy works? So we partnered with Yale University's economics department to provide girls in 11th grade an economics education where they would be able to grow and think about the world from an economic lens as well as their communities, learn the macroeconomic concepts. How do these things play out in the greater world that you live and work in? But then narrowing it down to how are these problems affecting your community? And in the future, for them to be part of the solution that will change their neighborhoods, their cities, and then hopefully overall the country and the globe. They spend about 4 months creating a capstone project as groups, and then they present at the Yale School of Management, which is also one of our partners. Before they present at the Yale School of Management, they have a week-long residential program where they get to live on Yale's campus, as well as hear from the Yale admissions office about how to competitively apply to their university. And our alumni have entered into Yale University as well as other top colleges across the country, including Cornell, Princeton, as well as top HBCUs like Howard University. So we're very excited about the results of the program, and our application is actually going to open up on October 31st for the class of 2026 to apply to our scholars program. So we're very excited about it and the growth of the cohort and the program itself.
Yeah. As you look around and you see these young ladies who have the access and the exposure to Ivy League universities, I know we talked about Yale, and I also know that there's some work that you do with regards to Columbia University as well, and I'll let you share a little bit about that. That level of exposure um, really can be the difference maker in a young person's trajectory. And I think that you captured something here because you recognize that if I'm exposing you to it, you may have a desire for it. And if you have a desire for it and then you achieve it, you are so far up the ladder. Whereas if you were before, you were just looking.
Definitely. We have a reach for the stars, land on the moon mentality here at Seeds of Fortune. We want our girls to be able to be exposed to the best of the best universities across the country. They see themselves there, they see their peers there, they see women that look like them there, that come from similar backgrounds and similar experiences. But in that ecosystem, they're pushing each other to bring out the best versions of themselves. So you have girls from Brooklyn, you have girls from Queens, girls from Staten Island, the Bronx, you have girls from Manhattan, Inwood, from all the way from Inwood down to the Lower East Side. And then all of those different backgrounds, all those different experiences is creating pressure cookers for excellence and the expectation of excellence. Then you take the girls in New York City And then we also have girls coming in from other states across the country. So you have girls from Atlanta, girls from Dallas, Texas, girls from Los Angeles, California. And you're seeing that the problems that are in your communities in your local ecosystem is not that different from a girl that is 50 to 100 miles away. And I think that inspires them to be like, look, we are the next generation and we have these opportunities. We're at the best institution that can cultivate our minds, but also these institutions are lucky to have us and our experiences and our perspective that we have to bring to the table. And I think that's really what their capstone projects are about, pulling those resources from the top universities and ecosystems, but then also showing them the value of what's in their community and how beautiful it is. So that when they are moving forward and when they are progressing through their college and their careers, they are the ones that are going back and lifting as we climb and leaving no one behind.
As I look at the work that you do, obviously it's a great body of work that you're doing in terms of preparing young people in the area of education. But then I want to go back also to wealth creation, because we understand that there is this generational wealth gap that exists, particularly in communities of color, particularly when you get down to the African American community. You've made it your passion and focus to say, listen, you know what? I want to do something about this wealth gap. I want to do something when it comes to young women and the wealth gap. And that leads you to doing what?
That lead me to creating a very unique curriculum that allows for teenagers at a period in time when they're 17, 18 years old to start thinking about things that are going to impact them 4 to 5 years from now. As you mentioned before, colleges can run you almost $400,000 a year. The most expensive is $90,000 a year. The average American makes $50,000 a year. The economics just don't add up. With teaching the girls to be consumers of the collegiate process and really thinking about the value proposition that these colleges offer, but then also trying to get the most aid and scholarship based off of their merit, as well as maybe circumstances that are out of their control, it allows for the leveling of the playing field. Our girls, on average, maybe graduate with $21,000 of debt, where in the African American community, it's about $50,000 over a lifetime. That's a lot to pay back, and that exasperates the wealth gap. You're not able to buy a home, right? Because you're still trying to pay off your payments from undergrad that you went to 15 years ago, right? That was supposed to be a step up in the economy and making your socioeconomic mobility better. So we're just really excited for the girls to have this kind of transition in mindset and in their financial ecosystem and opportunities. We also have a financial literacy course that we created in Seeds of Fortune called Return on Investment that teaches them about savings accounts, right? What is an investment account? And then how does this correlate to you as a young woman in college? We partnered with Chase to do a credit card workshop with their Harlem branch. So it's just really exposing the girls at a younger level to have the tools to be successful. And even if you make mistakes along your financial journey, because nobody's perfect, you now have at least a blueprint, right, on how things can be done. And then also how you can be corrective in your financial journey as well.
That financial journey is huge, and to have it for young people set up from an early age on, obviously, when we look at other families and we look at, let's just call it, white families, they get the early start. They get the early education. They get the early information to say, listen, you know what, this is the way that we do it. This is the way that we achieve wealth or go after it. And it's something that sometimes we don't have that conversation in our homes all the time. To
Exactly.
have those conversations are extremely, extremely critical. But for you, what is that importance of financial literacy and education? What does that mean for you?
For me, it means to be able to have the freedom, right? The freedom. I think what you're talking about when you see the families are talking about kind of generational wealth and being able to build upon what they have created in the past, right? Because that's what leads to generational wealth. It's allowing myself and my girls to have the freedom of options and choice to be able to do what they need to do in order to be successful, right? because when you have limited resources, when you have limited opportunities, it just doesn't allow for you to be able to even think about building wealth. But you take those barriers away, right? You're going to be the first person to earn six figures in your family. That allows you to have the disposable income to be able to invest in properties and invest in businesses, which has generationally not been the case. So for me, it's giving the gift of freedom to my students and to myself, right, to be able to have those opportunities. In addition to that, we expanded globally, and now we have Seeds of Fortune Ghana, and we'll be doing our tech and entrepreneurship boot camp, and we're partnering with Afro Future to be able to allow for our girls to have an expanded appetite for what's happening across the globe, especially in diaspora. We've been around for about 10 years, so our oldest alumni are around 29. So they're investing in the disposable income to go on a vacation and to do a service trip. So we're doing the Ghana service trip in 2024, December, and our alumni are actually helping to fundraise through the service trip to sponsor our girls in Ghana to have a tech and entrepreneurship girl startup experience. So it's like when you plant one seed, right? We planted a seed here in New York City to allow for our girls almost 9 or 10 years ago to be able to go to college, get good jobs. And now they're planting seeds and extending that globally to our girls in another country, right? Because even growing up, some of them didn't even have the opportunity to have a vacation because there wasn't enough money going around. But now, with the tools of financial literacy, with reduced debt, student loan debt, with getting high income earning jobs, this allows them the freedom of options and opportunities, and as well to become a seed in other people's lives.
For yourself, there's another word that I want to use to describe you. You know, you're a mentor, and you do a lot of mentoring. What's the power of mentorship mean to you, particularly when it comes to the lives of young women and young women, particularly of color?
To me, I think the whole organization started based off of mentorship. So when I was a high school senior, I was kind of lost. I was a high achieving student. I like had good grades, but nobody was there at first to like kind of navigate the ecosystem. And I had a wonderful woman named Phyllis D. Pearson. She was a Girl Scout troop leader. And I asked her, I was like, can you help me to kind of navigate the finances of college, how to be able to afford college and be competitive for scholarships? And she took the time out to work with me in the public library of New York City for 6 weeks and mentored me on how to present myself for scholarships, how to think more strategically about the process. And I feel like that's the type of mentorship that I provided to our first seed scholars and that our team provides to our girls in New York City and across the globe now, right? Because you can see what you want to be, but then the actual route to get there is unclear. And I feel like for me at Seeds of Fortune, we've been able to kind of take away some of that blurriness as well as gatekeeping of opportunities and make it accessible for girls here and abroad.
Yeah. Also, you know, with that mentorship comes the opportunity to create this like sisterly network, and I know that's near and dear to you. So, talk to us about how those two mesh together.
Definitely. I feel like in New York, I grew up with a lot of strong Black women in my community and my neighborhood, and they inspired me to know that there was so much more that I could achieve and that they were achieving. And I feel like for Seeds of Fortune, that sisterly network, peer camaraderie, as well as mentorship up with professionals and people in the C-suite allows for that sisterly network to be able to foster. And also, what we saw was that once you get into college, once you get into corporate America, everybody says it's not what you know, right? It's who you know. And we want our girls to be the who you know is going to help support you along the way, right? So, making these intentional social capital ecosystems where the girls they meet each other at 16 years old, they might go off to the same colleges together, right? They might be in the same industry and like somebody maybe got laid off or somebody's looking for a job opportunity and it's a seed person that helps to put them on. We have a WhatsApp communities chat where girls are like dropping internships in there and like, hey, like, did you get into this college fly-in program? Like, just encouraging each other. And then even if you're the first in your family to go to college or you're the first in your family to be in corporate America, there's other women that are now your seed sisters, in New York and across the globe that are rooting for you and wanting you to be successful and helping to put you on into opportunities. So that's what the Seeds of Fortune Sisterhood Network is all about, and what we try to exude for the members that come into the organization.
For people who want to know a little bit more about what you got coming up down the calendar, what are some events that people could look to and participate in?
Definitely. Well, we have our College Prep Leadership at Columbia coming up on October 18th and 19th on Riverside Church. We have our Yale Women in Economics applications opening up on October 31st. And then if you are willing to take a trip to the beautiful country of Ghana, we have our Ghana service trip coming up to launch our Financial Empowerment Center. And really so excited from all of our supporters there, as well as the Afrofuture team that is supporting our endeavors abroad. So we have some fun things coming up this fall and this winter, and would love for you all to be a part of it. You can follow us at Seeds of Fortune, our Instagram handle, as well as www.seedsoffortune.org, or find us on LinkedIn at Seeds of Fortune as well.
And when we talk about Seeds of Fortune, so much up under that umbrella. I didn't mention a little bit about the Girl Startup Incubator that you have, and the accelerator, I should say. So for those who don't know what the Girls Startup Accelerator is, why don't you share with us that too?
Yeah, so the Girl Startup Accelerator is a global entrepreneurship social impact program. Our Girl Startup Accelerator helps girls to think about social impact ideas that will solve problems in their communities while learning entrepreneurial skill sets. But then they also get to build a website based on Wix.com's backend. So then they become marketing little pros, and then they get to pitch their businesses in a competition. So the competition, it happens at BMO Capital Markets in Times Square, the semifinals round, and the finalist round happens with our partners at the Grant Cardone Foundation in Miami for the domestic program. And then for our Tech and Entrepreneurship Girl Startup Bootcamp in Ghana, we have it at Gimpa University, and then the pitch competition is going to be at Google across campus. The girls can win anywhere from $500 to $6,000 that can go towards their college education or funding their ventures. So we're super excited about the Girl Startup Initiative, and our girls have come up with some great entrepreneurial endeavors that we know are going to change the world, and have gotten into some great universities that we know will change the trajectory of their lives.
And for people who want more information, how do they go about reaching and contacting you?
Definitely, they can go to our website at www.seedsoffortune.org. If they would like to donate to our organization, you can go to seedsoffortune.org/donate. And if they're looking to apply to any of our programs, they can go on our programs page on our website, or follow us for updates on our Instagram at Seeds of Fortune.
And Nitiya, I want to say that, with the work that you're doing, obviously you're pouring into a lot of the lives of young people, and you've seen the success stories that come. What is it that allows you to keep on going and doing and doing, given the fact that you got so much under your umbrella? And this isn't light work here. This is some heavy work.
Definitely. I think it's the success of the young women. We see them come in at 16 years old, and they're trying to figure themselves out. They have so many ambitions and dreams, or maybe they're a little uncertain about their dreams, and they want to be cultivated by a community of others that can help them sharpen their iron. And then you see them go through college at 18 to 21, and then they're like kind of getting their stride, like finding their major, getting their first internship, and now all the way to seeing our first seeds, like getting their first jobs out of college, really seeing them come from maybe a lower moderate income household to being the first one to make $70,000 to $100,000 in their first 5 to 6 years out of college. I think that's what inspires me. And then to see them come back and help the other fellow seeds under them is just really inspiring to see how just planting one idea inside of a few people can really help to transform a community.
Nitiya Walker, it's been a pleasure having you here on the Social Justice Forum as you continue to empower and really delve into some of the issues that so many people are facing. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
All righty. We are taking a quick break, but listen, coming up afterwards, we're going to talk about some of the laws that are out there that have recently changed and how they impact you. That's up next, right after this.
Hey, creative family. My name is Timothy Coleman, and I'm the Director of Education here at BronxNet. And I'm standing in BronxNet's Media and Technology Studios in the South Bronx because I want to let you know about an amazing program that we're bringing back that highlights the creativity of community members just like you. Emerging Media Makers is a show that introduces you to BronxNet's certified producers. They've taken a step in their creative journey by enrolling in BronxNet's media training classes. On this show, you'll get to see the many ways that our certified producers have created a space that's all their own. Emerging Media Makers, your passion lives here.
And we are back. In recent months, the landscape of labor rights and workplace regulations has undergone significant changes, from the Federal Trade Commission's attempt to ban non-compete agreements to the ongoing Boeing strike, which has seen thousands of workers advocating for fair wages. The dynamics of worker power are shifting. Joining me now, sharing more, is the founding partner of the Boyd Law Group, Patrick J. Boyd. It's always a pleasure to have my friend here with me, and good to have you.
Great to see you again, Daren.
A lot to unpack here. When we talk about non-compete, right, because this took place April 23rd.
That's right.
My birthday, I remember that, right?
Oh,
So
wow,
it,
okay.
it was a great day. For some people, it wasn't a great day.
That's right.
But when it came to the issue of non-compete, a law that was passed down that really changes how we see things in the workplace environment.
It certainly does, for the federal government and for our president to get behind an initiative really seeing non-competes as unfair restrictions on what workers can do, and frankly, unfair restrictions or obstructionist restrictions on how the economy can function. If you have a job and you have another better job lined up with a raise, and you can't take that job just because of something you signed and you didn't really know you signed or have a chance about signing, that can be a real restriction on what you can do as a worker and what can happen for the economy and getting the best people in the best places. The unfortunate reality, though, of course, is that the federal government put this initiative in place, and a lot of chambers of commerce got together and challenged it, and their challenge, at least in Texas, was upheld. So the lifting of the restriction and the freedom for workers is still going to be held in abeyance for now, as this filters through the court process. You know?
Right. So when we talk about non-compete, for somebody out there that's watching right now, may not be so familiar about what non-compete is, let's break it down in layman's terms.
Sure. So from top to bottom, workers for a lot of years now have been receiving contracts or agreements, new documentation for their work. And that agreement or that documentation might include something that says, if you leave my job, if you leave this employment and you go somewhere else, and the place you go to is competitive with what you do here, you can't work there, or you have to get our permission to work there, or you have to wait 6 months before you can work there. Pretty much meaning that if you just sit down and read the document, you might not know if you can go from McDonald's to Burger King, or from JP Morgan to Goldman Sachs, or wherever it is when you're trying to move workplaces. And it's scary to think that you might be sued just for going out there and trying to get a better job.
Right. And the reality is, for so many people, that we're just trying to get to the next job.
That's right.
Trying to get to the next job. And I don't, but on the other side too, before I even take this job, I know how much I need this job. So
Right.
I will sign this.
That's right.
But we don't really find out how it goes down until it's the end and I want to leave. And then when I want to leave, here's somebody sticking this piece of paper saying, hey, 6 months, don't you come back on the air here.
That's exactly right. And I think it's fair to say that, exactly as you're saying, a lot of people, when they start a job, they get a ton of paperwork, Daren. And
Right.
it's not that they're not thoughtful. They're eager for the new job, and they think of it as just paperwork without necessarily a certain ramification or not. And oftentimes, by the way, they don't have the negotiation power anyways. The employer will say, sign it and start, or don't sign it and we'll take the next candidate in line. So
Exactly.
really an unfair restriction in a lot of ways that at least the federal government is taking stock in with this attempted initiative. And some states are freeing people from non-competes, like California and some other states. So even though the federal government initiative stopped, states are listening to that initiative and on their own making decisions that may give workers greater freedom. It's just going to take some time to figure out what happens.
Let's talk about home base. How's it looking here in New York with regards to this?
With New York, we had an initiative which failed. So Governor Hochul was trying to get more freedom for more workers. I think it was designed to free workers making less than $155,000. I think maybe 151 or 155,000. But ultimately, the initiative didn't pass. Interestingly enough, the governor is still in favor of having more freedom for workers, but she wanted to have restrictions on higher income workers. And you can understand that, right? If you've got the scientist who designed the secret formula for Coca-Cola, and that scientist makes a lot of money and wants to go to Pepsi, well, Coca-Cola has a reason to say, you know what, we better talk about this before you go.
Right.
But to Governor Hochul's point and the legislative points, for your standard worker who just wants a better job and a better chance and who doesn't have the secret formula to Coca-Cola on their laptop, right?
Right.
This freedom should be one more easy to obtain for workers. So hopefully the federal government's initiative will inform state government efforts, and workers will have a better chance at moving more quickly to the jobs that they deserve and have earned.
Yeah.
But it's going to take some time.
As we see it trickle down to the state level, obviously we know where it is with the governor right now. Any anticipation on how long before we can see any more traction on this?
If I had a crystal ball that told me what the legislature would do, I'd be a man in a very different position in my life here. But I think that it's fair to say that both the judges and the legislative leadership in New York are thinking more carefully about this and thinking more of it not just in terms of workers' rights only, but also in terms of making for a more robust economy. If the best workers can make quick, thoughtful choices to the best jobs more quickly, New York's going to do better. And so hopefully this is going to inform the way they try to legislate and the way they decide in the courts.
Because the reality is there's some wage suppression that goes on through this, right?
Of course.
And so let's break that down too from how that works out.
That's exactly right. Because if you've got that job at, let's say you're working at IBM and you've got this opportunity to go to, GE, right? IBM might just want to hold you down a little bit, right? Try to renegotiate with you, tell you you may not be able to start at GE right away. Stay with us, and if GE is giving you a raise, well, you can't have that raise for a while, so stay with IBM, meaning that you're still stuck with that lower wage with IBM for longer. I understand the notion based on that Coca-Cola, Pepsi
And it makes sense.
Right.
Let's be honest. It makes sense at a certain level, right?
That's
it makes
right.
sense when you're at a certain level to say, okay, maybe I can't go here, right?
Right.
Or like we'll do TV.
Right.
I can't go from 2 to 4 overnight.
Right.
We don't. That doesn't happen.
Right.
That's not reality.
Right.
But for somebody at another level, doing this for a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't make any good sense to say
It doesn't.
I don't want to hold you back. But companies do that, and it's a form of like really just I don't want to call it. I don't even want to call it
Well, it's
the best.
it's
the-
handcuffs, right? It's like
yeah,
the
there it
golden
is.
handcuffs
There
is what
it
you call it
is.
on Wall
I'm
Street.
going to use another word,
But-
so you bailed
right,
me out.
yes.
Thank you very much. Right. Go ahead.
Right. No, but you're absolutely right, and I think you're right in the way you're thinking about it too. The level of complexity is important, right? Does it have some value at some point? Absolutely, and there's reason for that. Does it have value for people making a certain salary under 150,000 to have that freedom to be able to move on and move up? Absolutely, it's important for them to have that freedom, and so hopefully that distinction's being acknowledged. Some states like California just threw the whole thing out. I think that wasn't a bad idea, to be honest with you, but we'll have to see what New York does, and it's going to take some time.
Yeah. Well, a lot of us across the United States are still talking about Boeing.
Yep.
And some people scared to fly, and others are shaking their head. And we know that Boeing is taking a strike, but there is an impact that's being felt through this Boeing strike. First of all, let's bring people up to speed on where we are with Boeing.
So as of today, Boeing decided to reject the most recent overture. Boeing decided to withdraw their most recent overture of an offer to their employees. They were offering, reportedly, about a 30% increase for the workers. The workers were asking for a reportedly 40% increase. Now that's over a period of years, by the way, so roughly 10% a year. And there is still an ongoing battle as to when the workers will start again, collaborate again, and start working with this company that has had its problems already without challenges in the workforce. Now, the interesting thing about this one, Daren, I think, and as an employment lawyer, I've seen this often with companies like Boeing, the workers want better wages, but they also want to be treated better, and the wages are just a reflection of that. It's a part of that issue. There have been some safety concerns with Boeing, right? Two crashes, and then these doors that fell off. And there's been a fair amount of discussion that some of the workers wanted to slow down the rush production to make sure safety was being observed more robustly.
Which sounds like the right thing to do, right?
It sure does to me.
Okay, all right.
Right?
Just want to make sure I'm in the right place.
And so not only are they hoping for better wages and more dignity, but more respect for what they're doing, because their hard work and dedication to the safety of the aircraft is an important dedication to the safety of all of us, right? And so it's been a real challenge for Boeing. And look, on the other hand, Boeing has got to produce. They have Airbus, which is the European competitor, which is driving hard to produce more aircraft, and Boeing's sort of the only meaningful large aircraft producer in the U.S. So they're trying to argue that they want to keep business and they have to keep producing, but a deal has to be made to respect the workers that are making those aircraft fly and keeping them safe.
Right. Let's dial back for a moment a little bit more on that corporate offer from Boeing. What was the last thing they were offering?
The last they offered, I believe, was reportedly a 30% raise over 4 years, and the union was demanding a 40% raise plus reinstatement of pensions. Pension's a big deal too. It's a thing of the past in a lot of private sectors, but it's a really important thing.
You know,
workers.
I think from the average person, I think that without knowing, the airline industry is huge, right? From Boeing all the way down to the airlines. We saw that they received corporate bailouts during the COVID pandemic, right?
Sure.
And but yet and still, when I go catch my flight, the ticket price, and then you see these taxes and all these other things, and so people are just not really too happy about the fact that when it comes to the airline industry, we can't see any level playing field here.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying? Like there's something that people are looking for to say, listen, you know what? You got to do better, because all the stuff that's going on around here, when I look at where my experience, I don't fall in. I can't relate.
Yep.
And I think we got to do better.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it would be just like what we were talking about last. I think it would be would be imperfect not to recognize again the complexity of the issues between strikes with pilots and strikes with workers and safety issues. The airline industry is a very, very, very complicated industry, and on the one hand, I completely understand people waiting in line for ridiculous times and feeling like they're getting a dangerous and poor level of service with the airlines these days, for sure. But on the other hand, my wife took a flight to Savannah to visit my daughter, and I think it was for $51.
Yeah.
And think about that. They're going 20,000 feet in the air for 2.5 hours for $51. So in some ways, what the airline industry can do with the right workers and the right collaboration
Right.
is remarkable. You know?
My thing is meet me in the middle. I mean, listen, as a guy who flies all the time,
Right.
I need to be met in the middle.
Yes,
and I
agreed.
think that that's what most people want,
Yep.
right? I think there was a time when airlines were very reasonable and it was
Yep.
easy. And I understand that, you know, as we say, life happens and things have to change,
Yeah.
right? But I think for the average consumer and for the business traveler, it's just gotten so bad right now
Yep.
that, you know, people are hesitant about flying. We're praying for people in Florida right now who are
course.
literally on 4, 5, 6 hours in the airport, and to hear that we don't even have adequate staff.
Yep.
You know, these are challenges that are every day, and so what I'm leading to is that there has to be a voice for this, right?
That's
and
right.
the voice of this many times turns out to be the unions who
Yep.
amplify their voice and say, "Listen, you got to take care of my employees. You have to take care. You have to take care of these people here. We will not be disregarded, or we're going to hit the streets on strike."
That's right.
And we have seen throughout the course of the last couple of years an emergence of union power. What are we seeing from your perspective about that power of unions that's really advocating and speaking and giving voice to the voiceless?
So absolutely true, and the summer of 23 has been called the summer of strikes in
Right.
some communities, just because last year there were so many strikes and so many things leading up to what's happening now. I think, to put it historically, unions had a great deal of power, and at its apex in sort of the Jimmy Hoffa days, where they were maybe 30 or 40% of the private
Right.
sector, they got all the way down to about 6 or 7% of the private sector. So they got really, really decreased power, decreased number of people in unions, right? And maybe that pendulum is swinging back a little bit, which is helpful. When I was practicing labor and employment law and negotiating these contracts, I was traditionally negotiating for 3 to 4% raises for workers. And you'll see these raises in these contracts now we're talking about are 10 to 12% per year for workers. So there is an increase in power and an increase in recognition, I think, on behalf of the employer, that they need to provide for and support the workers that are staying with them. There's also this recognition that they're not going to have people sticking around if they don't continue to increase their wages and benefits and give them an opportunity to share in the wealth that they help to create, right? For sure. I think the other thing that's added to the power, particularly in places like Boeing, and we'll talk about the longshoremen too, post-COVID, some of these businesses that had been asking for union concessions because businesses were shut down started to make a lot of money when things started up again, and not returning that profit to the workers that were working with them quickly enough. So the workers said, we cut when things were bad. We accepted those concessions. We knew it was a tough time for our country, for our world. Now it's time for us to share again in that wealth that we're helping to create. And maybe with these union initiatives and these better contracts that are being negotiated and these strikes, maybe workers are starting to get that chance in having a good say again about better benefits, better pay, better pensions maybe again, all kinds of great things.
Maybe, right?
Maybe.
You know, we have to wait and see. I mean, it's there. Talk to us a little. We want to discuss healthcare and workers. You know, there, and talk about the worker strikes.
Yep.
Going back to Boeing, right?
Yep.
They made a decision,
Yep.
and here we go.
That's right.
The decision is let's cut insurance.
Yep. Cut insurance, completely take away pensions, which is, wow,
Right.
It's the kind of thing that everybody's counting on. It's one of the few reasons that people would stay with a company like that, because they uniquely are large enough to have those kind of pensions. I think the other real good tale to tell in terms of maybe union success is with the longshoremen, right? With the strike that has just come, because the employer in that case has agreed at this point to pay 10% per year times 6 years, recognizing the importance of the longshoremen's work and these things. So meaningful success. And by the way, they're not done.
Right.
That's just what they agreed to so far as they continue to negotiate the contract further. But that was another big union with some power. Think about it. About half the trade of the United States comes through our ports. So that was $3 to $5 billion per day being lost with those workers on strike. That they actually decided to wield that power, get some better results, and it made a difference. made a difference.
Made a difference. I want to switch fronts for a minute, talk a little bit, take me down to Wall Street.
Sure.
We had a worker that was there,
Yeah.
died,
Yes.
and the cause of death being overworked.
Overworked, that's right. Technically, some heart failure based upon what seemed to have been work weeks in excess of 100 hours, which is a 12-hour day times 7 days a week, plus some, if you will, in
Right.
terms of intensity.
So 100 hours a week, right? Let's say we have 168 hours in a week,
That's right.
right? So you're working 100 hours a week.
Yep.
Not adequate rest.
Nope.
And yet and still the end result is the person is dead. Now where do we go from here? There's some litigation we looked at.
Yeah, well, it's I don't know if funny is the right word, but it goes to show you how little correction was made. Bank of America, this young man worked for Bank of America, right? About 10 years ago, they had another issue, almost identical, an overworked worker passing away because of working over 100 hours a week or something. At the time, they put in place a regulation that said that managers had to monitor the amount of hours that workers were putting in, right? And try to give them just some livable conditions. Now, bankers make good money sometimes, for
Right.
sure, right? But you still need to sleep, you still need to rest, not only to feel good about yourself and your life and your family, but also, frankly, just to sustain yourself and to do good work, right? I don't think anybody's doing great work on hour 90 of the week in which they're working
No,
100
I mean,
hours,
break
right?
it down for a minute and say 12 hours a day times 7 is 84,
That's right.
So that means if I'm working a 12-hour day, 7 days a week,
Yep.
that's 84 hours.
Right.
You just said to me,
Another
this person's-
16.
Right. So now you add on another 16.
Yep.
You don't. The average amount of rest is supposed to be 8 hours a day.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
So the math just ain't math.
No, absolutely right. And so Bank of America decided to redouble their efforts now to require 1 day of rest be provided to their workers, 1 day, right? And that the workers couldn't be, quote unquote, pressured into writing down or discounting the number of hours they worked. How effective that will be is still in debate.
Right.
Interestingly enough, JP Morgan Chase, in deciding to follow Bank of America, said we will try to adhere to the same standards, but if it's a sensitive deal time, all bets are off, right?
I'm just the guy on the other side of the camera. But I think common sense says that if we can make laws about this, there ought to be a certain law in place to say how many hours
Right.
a person can work a week, and not in excess of that, because that exceeds, health and whatever the case may be. It opens somebody up for liability.
Sure, well, absolutely right. And to your point, you'll hear all the time about the evolved European countries like France mandating a 35-hour work week or a 40-hour work week. And I would take your language on this. Let's meet in the middle somewhere, right? And
Right.
try to find some kind of solution. But the thing that and I went to school with a lot of people that went to Wall Street, right? They went to Dartmouth and then went on to Wall Street and worked those hours. And all of them would tell me and concede to me when I talked to them, sort of in an informal setting, I don't even know, Patrick, that I'm doing decent work after hour 60 or 61. I'm there. I'm putting in my FaceTime.
You
I'm in
ask
front
some
of the
people,
computer.
They'll tell you they don't even know if they're doing average work at the hour 8.
That's right. Of
You talk
course.
about-
Of course.
right.
Of course. So sometimes this hard driving just for the sake of hard driving isn't good for. It's not good for our health. It's not good for our families. But it's not even good for the business in which you're practicing if you can't focus and you can't do quality work in those extra hours. Hopefully, it's an unfortunate loss
So
of
will we
life.
see?
Of course.
I mean, it's my wish list, but will we see a law with limitations?
I doubt it. I doubt it. Maybe in factory settings or places where there's an easy way to control some of the hours, although the Amazon data isn't terribly compelling in that sense, right? But maybe there'll be a little bit of a better way to control things. But there is, in some of these white-collar roles, and I don't want to compare, they're working very hard, but in these white-collar roles, it's very hard to control how many hours somebody's going to work, when they're going to get the texts, off time, out of the office. How are you going to monitor it? And workers who want to get ahead, they're not going to complain collectively because they fear that just behind them is somebody else willing to do that extra hour from 90 to 95, that hours from 90 to 95 to 100. This young man who passed away, he was a former Green Beret.
Right,
You're
which
talking
gives
about
you the thought that, he was in pretty decent shape.
tremendous stamina, tremendous discipline, and still being overworked by the system in this case.
It's something to be said when you think about the fact that this gentleman was a Green Beret, served our country and served in such a tremendous way, definitely on the front lines.
Right.
And you come back to Wall Street.
Yep.
And you don't die in service in the Green Beret.
You die in service of a deal. Right.
That's crazy.
It's not the economy working for him or for Bank of America or for us or for it's not the way work is supposed to be.
Right. That was in service to a business and not a country.
That's right.
And that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Let me just go back for a second and twist up here. Inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Huge right now, right?
Yep.
And most Americans are really trying to couple and deal with the fact of inflation.
Yep.
And I also know that unions are really trying to work inflation into their argument and things of that nature to negotiate.
We need a raise because rents cost more, groceries cost more. We need a raise to meet those increased costs. Yes.
How's it going?
I think the best answer is unevenly, right? The unions are getting better deals, but let's remember, historically speaking, unions are still representing a very, very, very small part of the workplace. There aren't that many people who have unions, right? So the advocacy for increased wages and increased opportunities to get paid for what you're doing, and so you can provide for your family, is not being advocated for. The best choice is often leaving your job, and then we've got these non-competes, which we talked about, that make it harder to leave your job, right? So I think there's a lot of knots to untie as time goes on, and what I worry about a little bit is that the most recent numbers suggested that the hot job market is starting to cool off. So the opportunity for workers to leave for a better role, a better salary, better benefits, may be waning before it even took place sufficiently to take care of people and give them that chance to take that next step up. I hope that's not what's going to happen, but I think it's possible that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's some troubled times. Huh?
Yeah. The one thing I would say, I'm sorry to interrupt, both presidential candidates, at the time it was Biden and Trump, but both of them were in support of some of the unions that were acting out in the Midwest with the auto strikes. So I do think that there is a collective support for unions, particularly amongst younger people, that is growing and that is crossing party lines. And maybe that's going to allow for some more powerful legislation and some more powerful opportunities for unions to advocate for workers and for workers to advocate for themselves.
But we also have the Teamsters on one side. Not talk to me here. The Teamsters not backing the Democratic candidate.
That's right. For the first time since Clinton in '96, and the reason they didn't back him at that time was because of NAFTA and all the issues there. So, yeah, the Teamsters politically and their leadership believe, and I think accurately, that the Democratic candidate is far more aligned with workers' rights and workers' opportunities, absolutely. But the rank and file membership did not have the requisite voting support for the Harris ticket. So the party, instead of deciding to declare in favor of a candidate where they didn't think they had enough membership support, decided not to declare in favor. Now, there are still pockets of this, right? So there are still places where Teamsters are rallying significantly behind Harris, as an example. But it's in some ways surprising that what we're talking 30 years was the last time that the Teamsters, a very powerful union, wasn't fully aligned with the Democratic Party. And I don't know, Daren, to be honest with you, if that's partially because the Democratic Party hasn't done enough, or partially if the idea is that the Democratic Party has aspirations that they're not being able to deliver upon. And because they're not delivering, because there's no doubt that the platform is more demonstrative and supportive of workers' rights, right? But workers there aren't that many with unions. So not many of them have those rights, if you will. And so maybe it doesn't mean enough for them. And maybe the politics of the platform aren't being administered to with enough success for workers to see the party as making things better. They're trying, but if they're not getting anywhere, maybe the workers are voting on other issues.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I want to talk to you about how things are going in the courtroom, because I know we've had this conversation before, coming out of COVID, courtroom backlog, right? And being able to really litigate cases and do cases. I know there have been alternatives, judges have created, but, lawyers are still saying, listen, we still got our challenges here. What are you feeling?
I think that there has been a great deal of increased efficiency by those judges, and it depends on the judge, with those judges who have been willing to take camera-based or Zoom-based conferences, because instead of people having to travel to go to court and all meeting at 9:30 and then waiting for their turn for an hour and a half, people can get on and off and then go on with their other work, and the courts can be quite efficient that way. Some judges who haven't caught up with the technology, that efficiency is lost. The other thing I would say is this, though. The fundamental truth is that maybe 96 to 98% of cases settle at some point. And settlement is often done when the attorneys have a chance to meet face-to-face and talk about the case and talk about the strengths and weaknesses and maybe collaborate and try to solve their client's problems, as opposed to just arguing in front of a court. When lawyers aren't doing that, when they're not traveling to the courthouse, not sitting in the courthouse waiting for their chance to get in front of the judge, not meeting in person, not talking, I think that opportunity for collaboration and resolution is being lost. And as a result, I think, to the extent that as lawyers we're problem solvers, our opportunities to solve those problems are either being delayed or denied because there isn't as much attendance in the courthouse. So hopefully that will change over time. I think it's more efficient on shallow things and less efficient on deeper things, is the way I'd explain it now, but that's just one attorney's opinion.
One attorney's opinion. Your opinion counts here, buddy. Patrick Boyd, good to see you, brother.
Always a pleasure.
Come on back, all right?
Of course.
Listen, want to let you know that we've come to the end of our show today. Hope you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Social Justice Forum. Now, if you're rewatching this week's episode, do me a favor, recatch Cablecast, the Recablecast, I should say, here on BronxNet.org. Now, if you want to join in on the conversation, present your point of view, well, that's why we have social media. Visit us on social media at BronxNet TV, and we encourage you. Join us next week. We continue to elevate the discussion and bring further awareness to the issues that are going on across the globe. I am your host, Daren Jaime, saying take care. God bless. See you soon.